Captain Jun pressed his face against the cold glass of the observation deck, watching another merchant ship drift lazily through the shipping lanes. The vessel carried exotic fruits from Kepler 44 to B, heading to the mining colonies near Proxima Centauri. Just another ordinary day in humanity's peaceful corner of the galaxy. Another quiet shift, he muttered to himself, sipping his coffee that had gone cold hours ago. The orbital station hummed softly around him, its corridors filled with bureaucrats and trade officials instead of soldiers. It was hard to believe this same station once coordinated humanity's most brutal military campaigns, down in the administrative wing. Commander Yu typed her daily reports with practiced efficiency. Merchant license approved for the cargo hauler, Lucky Star. Diplomatic meeting scheduled between Earth and the Rigel Trade Union. Research permit granted for the xenobiology. Team heading to Wolf 359. The same boring paperwork she had been filing for the past 5 years. "You, did you process the mining rights for Sector 7? Called out Administrator Kim from across the office. "Already done," she replied, without looking up. "The Centaurans wanted to extend their lease for another decade. I approved it this morning." Kim nodded and went back to his own stack of forms. Everything was so peaceful, so routine. The galaxy had come to see humans as the perfect mediators, the species you could trust to handle delicate negotiations and complex trade deals. Other races respected Earth's diplomats and welcomed human merchants into their spaceports. But Jun remembered the old stories his grandfather used to tell him late at night. Stories about ships that could crack planets in half, and human soldiers who fought with such fury that entire alien civilizations surrendered rather than face them in battle. Those were just stories though, right? Legends from a darker time when humanity was young and angry. The truth was scattered across dead worlds throughout the galaxy. Massive military installations that tour groups now visited, taking pictures of rusted weapons they couldn't even identify. The tour guides would explain how these were relics from humanity's unfortunate aggressive phase before Earth learned the value of peace and diplomacy. What the tour guides didn't know was that many of those installations weren't really abandoned. Deep beneath the tourist walkways, in chambers sealed for 3 centuries, something waited in the darkness. Ancient machines that hummed with potential energy, their systems in perfect hibernation, ready to awaken at a moment's notice. The galaxy slept peacefully, trusting in humanity's transformation from warriors to merchants. They had no idea that beneath Earth's gentle smile lay the patient, watchful eyes of apex predators who had simply chosen to hunt with contracts instead of cannons. For now, Lieutenant Han nearly dropped his headset when the emergency frequency crackled to life. He had been monitoring the deep space communication array for 3 years, and the most exciting thing he usually heard was weather updates from the outer colonies. "Sir, emergency signal coming through," he shouted across the control room, his hands shaking as he tried to boost the signal's strength. Captain Jun rushed over from his coffee break, spilling the hot liquid on his uniform. "What kind of emergency?" "Ship malfunction." "No, sir. It's coming from Centauri colony. The signal is really weak and breaking up badly." Han adjusted the controls frantically, trying to clear the static that kept drowning out the message. The voice that came through sounded terrified, desperate. A human voice screaming across the void of space. "This is Centauri colony, under attack by massive armada, ... unknown species. They're not just destroying our ships, ... They devour planets, entire systems going dark. Earth, please respond. If you remember how to fight, then nothing." Just the empty hiss of dead space. Han stared at his instruments in shock. "Sir, I'm trying to re-establish contact, but there's nothing. The entire Centauri system just went ... quiet." Within minutes, Director Na arrived at the communication center, still wearing her evening dress from a diplomatic dinner. Her face was pale as she listened to the recorded message played back 3 times. "Fight what?" she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. We haven't fought anyone in 300 years. Our military is just ceremonial guards and parade units. Captain. Jun pulled up the tactical display, showing human colonies across the galaxy. Director Centauri had over 50 million people. 3 major cities, mining operations, research stations. You don't just lose contact with an entire star system. Maybe it's a communication problem, suggested Han hopefully. Solar flares, equipment failure ... But they all knew better. The fear in that colonist's voice was real. The way he said they devour planets sent chills down everyone's spine. Director Na stared at the star map, watching as one by one the communication links. 2 nearby systems began going dark. Whatever had hit Centauri was moving, spreading, consuming everything in its path. Get me the council, she ordered, her voice barely steady. Wake them all up, and find me someone who knows about those old military installations. We might need to remember some very dangerous lessons very quickly. The peaceful galaxy humanity had known for 3 centuries was about to end. 2 miles beneath the Swiss Alps, in a bunker that didn't exist on any government map, ancient alarms screamed through. Corridors that hadn't heard human voices in decades. The sound echoed off metal walls that had been built to withstand nuclear strikes, planetary bombardments, and things far worse. Keeper One's weathered hands trembled as he moved across. Control panels covered in 3 centuries of dust. At 80 years old, he was the youngest of the Keepers, trained by men who had actually fought in humanity's last great war. His fingers found switches and buttons by memory, muscle memory passed down through generations of guardians. The protocols are active, he said to Keeper Soul, who stood frozen by the massive central display. His voice carried the weight of terrible knowledge that no surface human could imagine. The surface world forgot what we really are, but something out there just woke up humanity's true nature. Soul stared at the screens coming to life around them. She was 93, old enough to remember her grandfather's stories about the war that nearly consumed the galaxy. I thought we'd never see this day. I hoped we'd never see this day. The displays showed star maps that would terrify any alien species in the galaxy. Hundreds of red dots marked locations that Earth's government had declared dead worlds or archaeological sites. But the Keepers knew the truth. Each dot represented a hidden military installation, a sleeping war machine, a weapon so powerful that humanity had agreed to bury them rather than risk using them again. Look at this, one whispered, pointing to a screen showing energy readings from the Vega system. The Nightfall is powering up. After 300 years of sleep, she's actually responding to the activation codes. Saul's face went white. The Nightfall could crack a moon in half. If she's waking up, then the threat detection systems must be reading something catastrophic. Around them, more screens flickered to life. Each one showed a different sleeping giant stirring across the galaxy. Massive ships hidden in asteroid fields. Planetary defense systems buried under miles of rock. Weapons that had been designed by humanity's greatest military minds, and then deliberately forgotten by their children. The surface dwellers think we're just peaceful traders now, one said sadly. They have no idea what we built when we were angry, what we became when we were threatened. Soul watched the activation sequence spreading across dozens of systems. They're about to remember. God help us all. They're about to remember what humans do to things that threaten our survival. The seismic sensors on Mars went crazy at 3:47 a.m. Earth Standard Time. What started as minor tremors quickly became massive earthquakes that shook the entire planet. In the observation dome of New Shanghai Colony, terrified scientists watched through reinforced windows as the red desert split open like a cracking egg. Dr. Kim, the colony's chief geologist, stared at her instruments in disbelief. This is impossible. There's something massive moving under the surface, something the size of a mountain range. Meanwhile, on Europa, The ancient ice sheets that had covered the moon for millions of years began fracturing with sounds like thunder. Deep beneath the frozen surface, engines that had been silent for 3 centuries roared back to life. Their heat melting ice so fast that geysers of superheated steam shot hundreds of miles into space. The research station orbiting Europa sent panicked messages back to Earth. Unknown energy signatures detected. Massive structural movement beneath the ice. Whatever's down there, it's bigger than anything we've ever seen. But nowhere was the awakening more dramatic than on Titan. The methane seas that had been calm for eons suddenly began boiling as something unimaginably huge rose from their depths. Structures the size of continents emerged, shedding lakes of liquid methane like waterfalls as they climbed toward the surface. General Leo stood in Earth's Emergency Command Center, still wearing his pajamas after being dragged from retirement at 2 in the morning. His old eyes, clouded by age, but sharp with military experience, scanned the incoming reports with growing amazement and terror. "The war giants are waking up," he whispered to the room full of panicked officials. "After 3 centuries of sleep, they're actually responding to the protocols." His hands shook as he pointed at the tactical displays. "That thing on Mars, it's the Planet Breaker. The structure rising from Europa is the Void Hunter. And what you're seeing on Titan, ... double quotes." He paused, his voice cracking with emotion. "That's the galaxy's end." The younger officers looked at him like he was speaking a foreign language. They had no idea what those names meant, no concept of the weapons their ancestors had built in humanity's darkest hour. "Sir, what exactly are these things?" asked Colonel Park, Earth's current military commander. Leo turned to face them, his expression grave. "They're the reason the galaxy used to fear us. They're what we built when we were still honest about what humans really are." He gestured at the screens, showing massive shapes emerging across the solar system. "We're not peaceful traders, people. We're apex predators who learned to hide our teeth." In the Vega system's asteroid field, what looked like just another space rock suddenly cracked down the middle with a sound that echoed through the vacuum. The massive stone wasn't a rock at all. It was camouflage, hiding something far more dangerous inside. The artificial asteroid, Admiral Min's stasis pod hissed as it began its wake-up sequence. Fluid drained away as his body slowly returned to life after 3 centuries of perfect sleep. His eyes opened for the first time since the year 2125, and his first breath tasted like metal and recycled air. "Ship status," he commanded, his voice hoarse but steady. Even after 300 years, his military training kicked in immediately. The ship's artificial intelligence responded with a voice that sounded almost happy. "Dreadnought Death's Edge fully operational, Admiral. All weapon systems online. Threat detection protocols have identified hostile alien forces, awaiting your orders for extermination procedures." Min sat up slowly, his muscles stiff but surprisingly strong. The stasis technology had kept him in perfect condition, ready for this exact moment. Around him, his command bridge began lighting up as systems that had been sleeping longer than most civilizations had existed came back to life. "Crew status?" he asked, pulling on his uniform that had been waiting for him all these years. "All 50,000 crew members awakening successfully. Captain Wren reports engineering fully operational. Commander Dahl confirms weapons systems ready. Colonel Bay has tactical prepared for immediate deployment." But the Death's Edge wasn't alone. Across 12 different star systems, similar awakenings were happening. On a dead world orbiting Wolf 359, the Starkiller emerged from beneath miles of artificial rock. In the Kepler system, the Void Reaper shed its disguise as a destroyed moon. Each ship was massive beyond imagination, built not just to win wars but to end them completely. Their crews had volunteered for this eternal watch, agreeing to sleep until humanity faced a threat too large for the peaceful surface world to handle. Admiral Cho woke up in the Sirius system, Her battleship Asterisk final. Answer Asterisk, rising from what everyone thought was just space debris. Time to remind the galaxy who we really are, she said quietly. Captain Ray opened his eyes aboard the Nightmare, hidden in a nebula for 3 centuries. His ship specialized in psychological warfare, making entire enemy fleets surrender through pure terror. The sleeping giants were awake, and they remembered exactly what humans did to things that threatened their species. The galaxy was about to learn why humanity had been left alone for so long. Dr. Bo sat in her laboratory at 2 a.m., surrounded by mountains of psychological reports that made no sense. Across Earth and its colonies, something impossible was happening to ordinary humans. A bakery owner in New Tokyo had drawn detailed blueprints for a plasma cannon while making bread. A kindergarten teacher in Berlin started discussing battle formations during her lunch break. Even stranger, a diplomat who had spent 20 years negotiating trade deals suddenly submitted a military strategy that impressed retired generals. "This is incredible," Dr. Bo muttered, reading another report. "An accountant in Mumbai designed a Starship weapon system yesterday. He's never even served in the military, never studied engineering, but the design is perfect." She pulled up brain scans from volunteers across the planet. What she saw made her hands shake. Deep in the human brain, in areas that had been dormant for centuries, neural pathways were lighting up like Christmas trees. Ancient patterns were awakening. At the emergency council meeting, Dr. Bo faced a room full of terrified officials. "It's genetic memory," she explained, trying to keep her voice steady. "For 300 years, we've lived as peaceful traders and diplomats. But deep in our DNA, we carry the memories of our warrior ancestors. The threat to our species has triggered something primal." Director Na leaned forward. "Are you saying every human is suddenly becoming a soldier?" "Not exactly," Dr. Bo replied. "But the instincts are awakening. The knowledge our ancestors used to survive is coming back online. We're remembering what we were before we chose to be peaceful." Captain Tay experienced this firsthand. Just yesterday, he had been calculating profit margins for a cargo run to Alpha Centauri. Now, staring at star charts, his mind automatically identified choke points for naval blockades, weak spots in enemy formations, optimal positions for ambush tactics. He shook his head, confused by these alien thoughts. Where is this coming from? He wondered aloud, but deep down, he knew. His great-grandfather had been a fleet commander during humanity's last war. Those tactical skills, that predatory instinct, had never really disappeared. They had just been sleeping, waiting for the moment when humanity needed its wolves again. Across Earth, similar transformations were happening. A nurse found herself understanding combat medicine. A farmer started thinking about supply lines for military campaigns. A musician composed marching songs that made people's blood stir with forgotten pride. The galaxy had made a terrible mistake. They thought humanity had changed, become soft and peaceful. But humans hadn't evolved beyond violence. They had simply chosen to set it aside. Now, faced with an existential threat, 3 centuries of sleeping predators were waking up. The merchants were remembering they were warriors at the edge of known space. The Devourer swarm moved through the darkness like a living nightmare. Their bioships stretched for thousands of miles. A writhing mass of organic technology that had consumed 17 star systems without breaking a sweat. They had left nothing behind but empty space and floating debris. The swarm leaders communicated through chemical signals, sharing their excitement about their next target. According to their scouts, the humans of Earth were soft creatures who preferred talking to fighting. The Devourers expected to find panicked refugee ships trying to escape. Maybe a few desperate colonists begging for mercy. What they found instead made them pause in confusion, emerging from the void like ghosts. Admiral Min's fleet materialized from seemingly empty space. The human ships were massive, angular, and covered in weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. These weren't merchant vessels or exploration ships. These were instruments of war, built by a species that understood violence on a level the Devourers had never encountered. "Devourer fleet detected," reported Commander Dahl from the weapons station, counting approximately 2,000 bioships. "They're moving in their typical swarm formation." Admiral Min studied the enemy through his command screen, his expression calm as ice. After 3 centuries of sleep, he felt surprisingly comfortable in this moment. This was what humans did best, not trading spices or negotiating treaties, but hunting things that threatened their survival. "Begin extermination protocol," he ordered, his voice so steady it sent chills through his own crew. "No survivors, no escape routes. Show them exactly why the galaxy used to fear us." The battle began, but calling it a battle was generous. It was more like watching a master surgeon work. The human fleet moved with terrifying coordination, each ship knowing exactly where the others would be. They cut through the Devourer swarm, like wolves hunting sheep. The Devourers tried their usual tactics, overwhelming numbers, aggressive charges, consuming their enemies. But humans had evolved beyond such simple strategies. While the aliens attacked with animal fury, the humans fought with cold, calculating precision. Captain Rin's ship Silent Death appeared behind enemy lines, having somehow moved through space without being detected. Commander Bay's weapons targeted the swarm's command ships first, cutting off their communication. The Devourers found themselves blind, confused, and isolated. Within 6 hours, it was over. The massive alien swarm that had terrorized the galaxy was nothing but floating wreckage. The humans hadn't lost a single ship. "Clean sweep," reported Dahl. "All enemy vessels destroyed." Admiral Min nodded. "Good. Now, let's go hunting for the rest of them." Commander Ben stood on the bridge of his destroyer Ghostwalker, watching the tactical display as it tracked the last group of fleeing Devourers across the Rigel system. The alien bioships were fast, but they couldn't hide from human sensors that had been designed to hunt things far more clever than them. "Target acquired," announced Lieutenant Sue from her scanning station. 15 enemy vessels hiding in the asteroid belt. "They think the rocks will protect them," Ben smiled coldly. "They're learning to be afraid. That's progress." He opened a channel to the rest of his hunting pack. "All ships, begin flanking maneuver. Don't let any of them escape." The human fleet moved like a pack of wolves, each ship knowing exactly where the others would be without needing constant communication. They had been doing this for months now, chasing down every last Devourer ship that had scattered after the first devastating defeat. "Another nest destroyed," came Captain Ra's calm voice over the communication system. Her heavy cruiser Final Judgment had just finished eliminating a Devourer breeding facility in the outer planets. "That's the entire sector cleared. Moving to Grid 77 Alpha." But the humans weren't the only ones watching this systematic extermination. Throughout the galaxy, other alien species observed the hunt with growing horror. The peaceful traders they had known for 3 centuries were gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. On the Centauran homeworld, Ambassador Veltar watched the tactical reports with shaking tentacles. "They're not just defending themselves," he whispered to his aide. "They're hunting. Every single Devourer ship in the galaxy is being tracked down and destroyed." In the Rigel Trade Union's capital, Director Zoxai studied the human fleet movements with professional interest and personal terror. "Look at this coordination," he told his military advisors. 60 different human fleets, moving across hundreds of systems, and they never get in each other's way. This isn't random violence. This is the most sophisticated military operation I've ever seen. The most frightening part wasn't the human weapons or their ships. It was their attitude. They hunted Devourers with the same calm efficiency they had once used to process trade agreements. No anger, no hatred, just cold, methodical elimination of a threat to their species. "Sir, we've eliminated the last group," reported Lieutenant Sue, that's every Devourer ship in this system. Commander Ben nodded. Excellent. Set course for the Vega system. Intelligence reports possible survivors hiding near the nebula. The hunt would continue until every last Devourer was extinct. Admiral Min walked into Earth's council chambers like a man carrying the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders. His uniform, crisp and dark, bore insignias that most civilians didn't. Recognized symbols from humanity's forgotten military past. Behind him, 6 of his warfleet commanders followed in perfect formation, their presence filling the room with an energy that made the politicians uncomfortable. Director Na sat at the head of the council table, her hands folded to hide their trembling. Around her, Earth's civilian leadership looked like children who had accidentally awakened something dangerous and didn't know how to put it back to sleep. The Devourers are extinct, Admiral Min reported, his voice carrying the finality of absolute certainty. Every ship destroyed, every nest eliminated, every trace of their species wiped from the galaxy. He paused, letting the weight of those words settle. The threat that awakened us is gone. Through the chamber's massive windows, the council members could see humanity's war fleet floating in Earth's orbit. Hundreds of ships that shouldn't exist, crewed by people who had been sleeping for 3 centuries, armed with weapons that could crack planets. The sight was both magnificent and terrifying. Now, we face a choice, Min continued, his eyes scanning each council member. We can return to hiding what we really are, put the war giants back to sleep, send the fleets back to their graves, pretend we're still just peaceful merchants and diplomats. Commander Rin stepped forward, or we can reclaim our place as the galaxy's apex species. Stop pretending we're something we're not. Director Na looked at the star maps displayed on the chamber's screens. Every major star system now showed human patrol fleets, their positions marked in red. The galaxy's trade routes, once protected by various alien defense forces, were now under human military control. The other species are terrified, she said quietly. The Centaurans are requesting protection treaties. The Rigel Trade Union wants to negotiate new agreements. Everyone is asking what humanity plans to do next. Admiral Min smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. They should be asking. For 300 years, we let them think we were harmless. We played their games, followed their rules, pretended their opinions mattered. He gestured toward the window and the waiting fleet. But this is who we really are. Apex predators who got bored with hunting. The galaxy held its breath, waiting for humanity's decision. Knowing that the peaceful facade that had lasted 3 centuries was shattered forever.